Danan Hughes joins us. He's the color analyst for the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network. Danan, appreciate the perspective and time, man. Hope things are well.
All's good so far. Looking forward to this weekend. Appreciate you guys having me on.
All right, so when Mahomes went down, he was hobbled. He was playing through it, went to the sideline, came back out, and then someone, I don't know who, convinced him to go in the locker room and get this checked out. There was like a full hour between the time he did that to when he came back out on the field. Did you think when he went in the locker room he was going to return?
Well, yeah, it was like a soap opera to some extent, not necessarily with all the drama, but just the questions as far as how things were unfolding. And this is real game time that we're going through this. And because I'm in the booth, I have the vantage point right over our sideline. So we're constantly going back and forth with our sideline reporter asking about Patrick Mahomes. I've got my binoculars out looking at Patrick on the sideline. And the one encouraging factor that kept me going and kept me believing that he was going to be back in the game was that he never sat down. Like, he sat down for a quick second, but everything else was moving on the sideline. Even while Chad Henne was in the game, he was right next to Andy Reid for most of that time. So I felt like if this ankle is seriously bad, like, they'd probably strap him down somewhere, and they didn't do that. So I felt like there was a chance. Unfortunate for us, if he had to get injured, that it was before halftime, so he was able to go in and get treatment. The other concern was, okay, now that he sits still during halftime for 12 plus minutes, is he going to come out and be stiff? So a lot of encouraging parts came from that, but I was glad that he was able to make it back in the game. I think the Chiefs fans were glad as well.
Dana, I know this may surprise you. I did not play in the NFL like you did. I also did not play pro baseball like you did, but I did play sports a lot growing up. And I feel like anytime I see an injury that I've had, your mind immediately goes to, well, here's how I would have reacted. And most of the time it would be, I wouldn't be playing the rest of the game. And I had playing backyard tackle football, threw someone's body over the inside of my leg, and it rolled the leg in that way, but it inverted. And I had a severely sprained ankle. My ankle swelled up pretty quickly and couldn't walk for a week after that. I'm sure you've either suffered an ankle injury that's similar to that or seen it happen. So what goes through your mind when you see that? Do you revert to your own experience as a player if that's happened? And what is the best case scenario now for Patrick Mahomes? Because I'm sure that thing is swelling and not getting any better this week, at least at this point in the week.
So I believe what makes us or makes these guys premier athletes is the level of invincibility that they have. You never believe that any other injury that someone else has can affect you the same. And I feel like that's the case with Patrick Mahomes. I had a high ankle sprain in college. I've had ankle sprains, hamstrings, everything else in the book, concussions or whatever, with the Chiefs. But I can tell you that when you have it internally and you have that adrenaline in the game, it's different than practice, obviously. But in the game, you feel like you can battle through anything. As long as I can stand, I can run. As long as I can run, I can cut. I can catch balls. I can do whatever's necessary. And that's kind of what I felt like Patrick Mahomes was doing out there. You can see that there was a significant difference in his mobility in the second half than it was in the first half. Even handing the ball off. There were some stretch runs that he had with Jerick McKinnon in the backfield and Isaiah Pacheco that it seemed like it took everything in his fiber to get the ball to the running back to run off tackle. Never mind the limited mobility and in regards to bootlegs, his drop back. And remember, this is his right foot. So it's his right ankle, which is the plant foot when he drops back. So you have to have all of that going on in your head if you're Patrick Mahomes, because you still want to be able to deliver the ball efficiently. So a lot of things, but I feel like he mentioned, he said, I am not, unless they tell me I cannot go out on the field and basically someone takes my helmet, I'm ready to play and battle through it. Now, we've seen him have this same injury. He had the dislocated kneecap a couple of years ago when we went to the Super Bowl. Those are different. Like, this was different because he stayed upright. He got up, he kept moving. And I felt like, plus the adrenaline, helped him to battle through the rest of that game. But you take a half of the playbook away once he's injured, because his mobility, his improvisation, the plays he makes off schedule is part of what makes him magical.
Danan Hughes, our guest on OutKick 360. He's the analyst for the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. I saw a poll from Kansas City fans. I was a bit surprised by the vote on who they would rather play. And it's probably because they get to host the game instead of going to Atlanta, but it was overwhelmingly everyone was voting for the Bengals. Look, there's not many teams that are confident whenever you're playing Kansas City. Cincinnati's one of them. They're boasting about Arrowhead is now Burrowhead in Kansas City with how much success they've had in recent games and matchups, 3-0 over the last year. Why do they match up so well against the Chiefs? And what must Kansas City take away in order to allow Mahomes, with his immobility, because it's going to be bad, to still be as effective as we've seen through stretch runs of postseason games that he's played in?
So I'll get to your first question first in regards to the Bengals and their confidence, I believe, in going against this team. So the fans, we all wanted the Cincinnati Bengals. I wanted the Cincinnati Bengals in part because of, if I dig down deep into this body, there's still that athlete competitive spirit that's in there, even though I've been away from the game or on the field since the late 90s. Having said that, I feel like if I was a boxer instead of a football and baseball player, I would always want the rematch. If somebody knocked me out, I want the rematch. I don't want to fight anybody else to get back to that point. I would always want the same guy. And I feel like that's what the mantra is of this team and this Chiefs kingdom. All the fans is like, okay, we won Cincinnati. Yes, we love the fact that we can have them at home, but they're like that factor that you just haven't been able to get past. And you can take another road to the destination, but you always feel a little bit better when you're having the opportunity to go through that road. So I know that I feel like Cincinnati would be a better matchup. I was asking for this matchup for several weeks as we led into the playoffs because I just have that spirit that I want them again. For them calling it Burrowhead, I mean, that's trash talk. I don't like it personally. I know the Chiefs fans don't like it. He's only won one game of the 3 games here, and that was last year's AFC Championship. So to feel like you can call Arrowhead Stadium Burrowhead, okay, it's cute, but I think the players are going to take it to heart. There's a lot of talking going on that side from the Cincinnati Bengals, and hey, justifiably so. They've been there. They've done that. They've gotten to the Super Bowl. They've beaten us 3 times. But the game will be settled on the field. And I think what we're going to have from our Chiefs fans is a little bit extra spirit from our team because of all of this.
What we don't know, and we got a great snapshot last week with the 98-yard drive, is what will Kansas City be like if they have to go with Chad Henne? You've seen him up close. You've seen him play a lot more than we have because it's always been Mahomes. What should we expect offensively if they've got to go to Henne?
Well, what we know about Chad Henne, he's a 15-year pro. He's been a starter. He's been a backup. He's had some successes. But what we know about what he's done with this organization is that he's been extremely efficient. 98 yards his first time. He's only had 2 other pass attempts before this game where he got thrown in after Patrick got hurt and didn't have any completions. And to me, that shows the epitome, and I talked to him after the game in the locker room, of being a pro. I played with Marcus Allen. Marcus Allen used to walk around, call guys pro. Hey, what's up, pro? What's going on, pro? And I always knew what he meant, that it was a different aura about that person. It was a different way they approached the game and their professionalism. So with Chad Henne, like, you didn't see any kind of chaos. You didn't see any kind of extra concern. They felt like he could move the ball and get them to a win, however way it was necessary, if we needed to lean on the run game more or the pass game. He's also been in this situation before. Just a couple of years ago when we played the Cleveland Browns, Patrick Mahomes went down with an injury, and Chad had to come in and basically threw a quick out to Tyreek Hill to seal the game in that tight game. I believe that was the divisional round as well. So to me, Chad's been down this road before. And when you talk to everybody in the organization, from the players to the coaches, like they don't miss a beat in regards to the confidence that they have in Chad. And if he's needed to play more than a couple of series, to play more than a quarter or so, they feel like they can still get the job done.
Travis Kelce is amazing because even when the opponent knows that he is the ultimate security blanket and can still make big plays, that they seemingly cannot take him away at any point in time. If it's Chad Henne, if Patrick Mahomes gives it a go and simply physically can't do it, what is the relationship like with Henne to Kelce? And is that then the security net type deal for the backup quarterback, given his production with the starting quarterback?
So I was a quarterback in high school, emergency quarterback with the Chiefs. If Montana and the other guys went down and we were truly, truly desperate, and I'm smart enough to know that 87 is my safety valve. So I have to believe that Chad Henne would probably be smart enough to know that if he gets in the game and he has to orchestrate multiple drives, his first option should be 87, second option should probably be 87, and then he can distribute to the rest of the guys. Probably my third guy would be McKinnon out of the backfield. So these guys, they work together. And even if Chad is not getting reps on the field in practice with Travis Kelce, he's seeing the film, he's watching the practices, he's going through the mental reps as if he was in those practice reps or in the game. So Travis Kelce had 14 targets on the game. At the time that Patrick Mahomes went out, I believe Travis had 10 catches already. So it's not rocket science. Like, even if I had to be thrust in there, like, I would know, okay, I don't know what this play call is going to be. I don't know where we're going to go with this down and distance, but I do know when I break the huddle, I'm going to find where 87 is and make sure that I give him a few more shots than everybody else.
Now I have to ask, as you said, you were the emergency quarterback. How many plays in the playbook were for you that you could run as quarterback if you got thrust in the game? And how many of them were passes versus how many were rushes or some form of option that you'd run if you came in?
So I would say this is back in Marty Schottenheimer days, and we were a run-heavy team, even though we had the West Coast offense. So I'd have to believe that 90% of the plays would be run plays, and the other ones would probably be three-step drops. So I don't know if they would have opened up the playbook and had me run a 2-minute offense, but I did pride myself on at least knowing the entire playbook from an offensive perspective, that if anything was needed, if the sky was falling and both quarterbacks went down and somebody just needed to be serviceable, that I would be prepared for it. But make no mistakes, there would not be 5-step, 7-step, shotgun, audibles at the line of scrimmage, no Omaha from me at all. I'd probably be just handing to Marcus Allen or Kimball Anders.
Danan, I believe the forecast for Sunday in KC is very similar to what we saw in Buffalo a week ago. It's going to be cold, chance of snow. Does the turf in KC actually benefit Mahomes more, the fact that he's playing on grass, even if it may be frozen? I know they heat that thing. I've stood on Arrowhead before. Mm-hmm. It's not the same as a frozen tundra. Or, yeah. I mean, he's not playing on turf in Atlanta for the AFC title game. That's got to be beneficial for a guy that's going to be trying to work through the pain.
Yeah, it absolutely is. If you poll a lot of the players, and I think even earlier this year, people went to Travis Kelce and some other players and asked about playing on the sports turf versus natural grass. And I was a little bit surprised because I thought with the new innovation and the cut-up tires and grounded up tires and rubber, that people would prefer that sports turf, but it's the total opposite. As a player, not the old school AstroTurf that I played on, but as a player now, these guys still want to be on a natural surface. And as far as the field surface itself, there's none that are better than Arrowhead and how the groundskeepers keep up this turf with the heated system underneath and the infrastructure. It's not going to be frozen. It actually was about the same weather this past weekend against the Jaguars, where we had snow coming down during the game, and it was probably in the middle 30s. And I think that's kind of where it will be, maybe a little bit colder because the game's in the evening. But these guys would prefer to be on the grass surface of Arrowhead Stadium, and I think it's going to help Patrick Mahomes at least get through the game. He's going to have to deal with some pain. Let's face it. He's going to have to deal with some pain, and hopefully it doesn't impact his throwing motion, his abilities to maneuver in the pocket and protect himself. And also it doesn't tip off the defensive backs. I talked about this earlier on another show. When you plant that back foot, the defensive backs usually square up with the receiver, and they can tend to squat on balls or squat on receivers' routes because that back foot is planted by the quarterback. So you don't want to get in a situation where these guys are jumping routes and you get any turnovers, because that could, make for a bad ending for the Chiefs. So I want them to protect themselves first. I feel like the grass surface is definitely the best surface for him to do so.
We'll get one more matchup discussion with you. I believe that Samaje Perine, not Joe Mixon, had the big day against KC earlier this year.
Yeah.
But Kansas City has also, they've rushed it well against Cincinnati in these 3 losses that we were referring to. What's the battle in the trenches like? Who do you give the advantage to and why?
So, I'd say this. Cincinnati Bengals are definitely a dual threat team. They don't have the necessarily the ability as a rusher from the quarterback position, but they make up for it with Mixon and Perine. And they are okay with running it at any place at any time. This will be a game where I think each team will take their chances. You may see a few 4th down tries, and that's where the rushing game becomes prominent on 3rd down. If you know you're at the 40-yard line or at the 50-yard line and you're in 4-down territory, you're likely going to run the ball on 3rd down because you know you have that extra down to try to get the 1st down. So that's where those 3rd down situations, when they were contemplating running another play on 4th down, is where they were really proficient against us in the past. Let's also remember Patrick Mahomes hasn't had the best second halves of games against this Bengals team. In all 3 matchups, he hasn't thrown a touchdown in the second half. So the fact that we were still in each game, they basically all ended identically with 3-point losses, tells you that our run game can be efficient in the second half and throughout the game. So I feel like maybe with the injury, maybe with the willingness to try to keep Joe Burrow on the sideline, you may see a little bit more run game this week than normally, but the Bengals are good against the run as well. So I think Andy Reid, when it's all said and done, the best player on the field is Patrick Mahomes, and you want the ball in his hands more than anybody else, but you also have to be cognizant of the run game that's going to be coming at us to try to keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline. But the 1-2 punch with Perine and Mixon, very, very formidable. Each guy can catch the ball out of the backfield. They run the ball extremely well downhill, especially when they're lined up 6 yards right behind the quarterback, and we're going to have our hands full.
And I said last week, I felt like going into the game, the matchup against Buffalo, we were going to see the loss of Von Miller really show up for Buffalo. I thought that was the case post-game, too. They could not get pressure on him. Is this the week where, man, they've done great things without Tyreek Hill, but if they had him available, the quick pass game that Mahomes is going to require, this would be a perfect matchup for him. Who steps up in that role?
So, I think it would be an asset, but some people would argue that with Tyreek Hill, we lost those 3 games. I mean, at least 2 of them, I should say. So, I think Juju Smith-Schuster is a guy that he recognizes this Bengals. He was in their same division. He's played physical football. He's not afraid to go across the middle. I think shallow crosses and those spot routes over the ball are going to be the outlets for Patrick Mahomes for him to get rid of the ball quickly and then have somebody break a tackle and make a play. So to me, you got Noah Gray, who came up big last game. You got Jerick McKinnon, who's been outstanding catching the ball out of the backfield and those little check down routes and swing routes. But I'd also say Juju Smith-Schuster can be that other guy that's going to be able to take a 5-yard pass and make it into a 10 or 15-yard gain, move the chains. And let's not forget Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney has slowly kind of got into the mode of that Tyreek Hill factor in our offense, where they've gotten him the ball in space, and he's able to make people miss and take, not necessarily to the extent of Tyreek Hill, where you take a 5-yard hitch, make 6 Buffalo Bills miss, and go for 45 yards. But he's done some nice damage with catching the ball on the sidelines and getting positive yardage. So I think the complement of guys is going to equate to what maybe we lost with Tyreek Hill.
Danan Hughes is the radio analyst for the Kansas City Chiefs. Thanks so much for the perspective, man. Enjoy it. And, you know, you've got a hell of a team that you get to call on a weekly basis. It's got to be a blast. We're jealous.
And congrats on getting to host the game and not have it at a neutral site in Atlanta. It's even better to have it at Arrowhead.
I appreciate it, guys. Here, 5 straight years hosting the AFC Championship.
Incredible.
I would have never guessed that would be possible. So it's been a blessing. Looking forward to one more after this week.
All right. Advance, we'll catch up in Arizona. We'll preview the game with you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. There he is, Danan Hughes.